This is the IN12 4-digit Nixie clock that you must assemble yourself. The IN12 Nixie Clock Kit is a 4-digit clock kit that uses Nixie tubes to display the time. What makes it unique is that there is no PCB to mount the components on. All the parts are soldered directly to each other using bits of wire. The kit does not include an enclosure or other mechanical parts. However, the biggest drawback is the lack of a manual explaining how to assemble it. To help others who are interested in building this kit, I decided to document my own assembly process. I took an ad hoc approach, and there may be better or easier ways to put it together. Including filming, it took me over 20 hours to assemble the clock. In the end, I successfully built a working clock that can be controlled with an infrared remote to set the time. The IN12 Nixie Clock Kit is not a kit for beginners. It uses lethal voltages without any form of protection. Therefore, be very careful. Never work on the clock when it's connected to the power supply. Work slowly, be patient, think things through before you act. Be prepared to redo certain things when you find that something doesn't fit or so. The kit contains all the parts required to build a clock, except for a mechanical support. Let's have a look at what's in the kit. A schematic diagram of the clock, a plastic bag with all the components, 2 Nixie tubes, 2 rolls of wire, a 12-volt power adapter, 2 more Nixie tubes and some metal rods. Now let's move on to assembling the kit. The clock can be broken down into 3 main parts that can be assembled separately. These parts are the high voltage power supply, the microcontroller unit and the Nixie tubes with their driver. It is strongly recommended to start with the high voltage power supply. First of all, because it goes on the bottom of the clock, making accessing it later rather complicated. And second, if it doesn't work, there is no point in continuing building the clock. So here we go. First, I soldered diode D1, the BIV26E, to inductor L1. Then I soldered the 7N60 MOSFET Q1 to the inductor. Soldered 10 cm of thick wire to the MOSFET with about 7 cm to the left and 3 cm to the right. Solder capacitor C1. Solder the 4.7 microfarads 400 volts capacitor C2. Make sure to connect its positive side to diode D1. Solder about 7 cm of thick wire to the unconnected side of inductor L1. Next, solder the collector of the 8550 transistor Q2 to the ground wire. Then add diode D2. Next, solder the 1 kilo ohm resistor R8. Then solder the 8-pin IC socket to the thick plus wire that runs to inductor L1. Pins 1, 7 and 8 must all be soldered to this wire. Pin 2 must be soldered to diode D2. Next, solder the 2.2 nanofarad capacitor C4 between pin 3 and the ground wire. Solder a piece of wire between pin 4 of the socket and the ground wire. Next, solder the 0.2 ohms resistor R3 to the plus wire. Solder the 100 nanofarad capacitor C5 between pin 5 of the socket and the ground wire. Solder one side of the multi-turn trim potentiometer R7 to the ground wire. Also connect the middle wiper wire to the ground wire. Solder the 2K2 resistor R5 between the trim potentiometer and pin 5 of the IC socket. Solder the 330 microfarad 35 volts capacitor C3 to the ground wire. Solder its positive side to the unconnected side of R3. Solder a piece of wire between pin 6 of the socket and the positive side of capacitor C3. Solder one side of the 470 kilo ohm resistor R4 to the cathode of diode D1. Insert U1 the MC34063 integrated circuit into its socket. Make sure to orient it correctly. Pin 1 should connect to the plus wire. Now solder the loose end of resistor R4 to pin 5 of the socket. As the wire is too short for this, add a bit of thin wire to make it longer. Keep track of your progress by marking the completed connections on the schematic. The high voltage power supply is now ready, time to test it. Connect the G pin of the USB connector to the ground wire. Solder fuse F1 to the V plus pin of USB socket P1. If you have an extra diode, connect its anode in series with the fuse to add reverse polarity protection. Solder the cathode of this diode to 12 volt node R3C3. Connect a voltmeter to the output of the high voltage power supply. Connect the 12 volt power supply to the USB connector. The voltmeter should indicate a voltage somewhere in the range from about 140 volts to over 200 volts. Note that I soldered one of the large 20 kilo ohm resistors to the output of the high voltage power supply to create a suitable load. Remove the load resistor when done. Carefully adjust the trim potentiometer to set the voltage to 170 volts. Now is a good time to prepare a mechanical base for the clock. Insert the two shortest rods into the holes and solder the ground wire of the high voltage assembly to both of them. Leave about 5 mm space under the circuit. We will now assemble the real-time clock. It consists of battery holder BT1, IC U12, a DS1302, a 32.768 kHz watch crystal Y1, the two tiny 20 picofarad capacitors both labeled C12, and the two 10 kilo ohm resistors R14 and R15. Prepare 3 pieces of thick wire of the same length to connect the real-time clock to the 28-pin socket of U6. Solder them to pins 18, 19 and 20 of U6 and pins 7, 6 and 5 of U12. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Attach the real-time clock assembly to the clock's frame using the ground connections. Assemble the 5 volts voltage regulator consisting of the 200 microfarad capacitor C11, C12 and U14, the TO220-7805 regulator IC. It is not shown here, but the 5 volt VCC output wire should be about 50 mm long. The ground wire is about 60 mm long. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Add the 4 tactile push buttons to the ground wire of the 5 volt supply. Actually, they can all be mounted in the same way, there is no point in one having a different orientation. Cut the left rod and attach the 5 volt supply assembly to the clock's frame. Solder the infrared receiver SL0038LS IRM between pin 4 of U6, ground and the plus 5 volts. Connect the push buttons to pins 1, 28, 27 and 26 of U6. Note that I used the thick wire for all the connections. As you will see later, I only used the thin wire for connecting the Nixie tubes. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Connect the input of the 5 volt power supply, U14 pin 1, to the input of the high voltage supply at resistor R3. Test the two power supplies. Make sure the output of the 5 volt supply is 5 volts. Insert U6, the 28-pin STC15W408 IC into its socket. Pin 1 goes near the push buttons. Insert the button cell battery in its socket. We will now assemble the Nixie tube driver. For this I used graph paper to ensure that the ICs would be oriented and spaced correctly. First solder the power lines, then add the decoupling capacitors, also for U3 and U9. These are not shown on the schematic. Note that we made no ground connection between U3 and U2. We will do this later. Connect U3 to U2 and connect U9 to U8 in the same way. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Connect U3 to U5 and connect U9 to U11 in the same way. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Now it is time to connect the Nixie tubes to the driver. Start by preparing a mechanical frame to hold the 4 tubes. Here are the dimensions I used. The 2 vertical rods will be cut to their final length later. Beware of the orientation of the Nixie tubes. Inside the tube, one of the pins has a white sleeve. On the back there is an arrow pointing to this pin. This is pin 11. The rods must be soldered to the pin next to this pin, pin 12 on the schematic. Solder a 20 kilo ohm resistor to pin 11 of each Nixie tube. These are R10, R11, R12 and R13. Solder the other sides of these resistors together. Now we are going to attach the Nixie tubes to the driver assembly. This was the part that I dreaded most, but it turned out to go quite smooth. It did take me more than 2 hours though. Place the Nixie tubes upside down with the rods pointing up. Work your way up from top to bottom. I connected the tube pins in the order 5, 6, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 9, 10. Use the thin wire. There is more than enough of it provided in the kit. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. When the Nixie tube plus driver assembly is finished, you can determine the position of the two holes for the rods in the base plate. U3 and U9, the two 74HC595 ICs, should be in the same vertical plane as the microcontroller U6. For me, this meant that the distance between the Nixie tube rods and the other two rods needed to be 65 mm. In my case, a good height for the assembly turned out to be about 10 cm. The minimum height would have been 8 cm. With more experience, or if you really want to, it can be as low as 70 mm. The large voltage regulator U15 that goes on top of the clock will add at least 1 cm to this. Cut the rods to length. Note that the rods are thick and hard to cut, therefore use a good cutter and be careful not to hurt yourself. Connect U9 to U6. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Connect U3 to U6. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Mount the large voltage regulator U15 LM78H05K on top of the clock. Check the ground connections. Do not forget to add a ground wire between U3 and U2 as we didn't solder one yet. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Connect the high voltage power supply output to the 20 kΩ resistors of the Nixie tube assembly. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. The last thing to assemble are the two neon light dots that separate the hours from the minutes. Assemble the circuit with 510 ohm resistor R6, 10 kΩ resistor R9, transistor 13005Q3, neon lamps DS1 and DS2, and the two 200 kΩ resistors R1 and R2. Insert the neon lamp assembly between Nixie tubes U7 and U10 and connect R1 and R2 to the high voltage supply. Connect the loose end of R6 to U6 pin 17. Keep track of your progress on the schematic. Check your wiring once more. Watch out for shorts and make sure the ground is connected everywhere. If there are any connections in the schematic left that are not highlighted, check them. Power the clock. After the startup sequence, when the time is being shown, the two neon lamps will blink once per second. The last thing that remains to be done is to set the time. There are two ways to do this, with the push buttons and with the remote control. The first button, S1, connected to U6 pin 26, is the time set button. Press it to enter time adjust mode. Use S2 minus and S3 plus to adjust the tenths of hours. Press S1 again to adjust the hour units with S2 and S3. Press S1 again to adjust the tenths of minutes. And press S1 again to adjust the minute units. Press S1 a last time to leave time adjust mode. In normal mode, S2 shows the startup sequence. S3 doesn't seem to do anything in normal mode. S4, the button closest to U6, and that is mounted horizontally, switches the Nixie tubes on or off. The remote control can be used instead of the push buttons. The red power button toggles the Nixie tubes on and off. The C button works as S1 and enters time adjust mode. Now you can simply enter the time by using the numeric keypad. After entering 4 digits, including a leading 0, the clock will automatically switch to normal mode. The test button runs the startup sequence. I found some other features by trying the other buttons. The undo button toggles between 24-hour and 12-hour mode. The rewind button lets you set a time for switching the Nixie tubes off. The fast forward button lets you set a time to switch the Nixie tubes on. The plus button lets you set a time, but I don't know what it's for. The 0 to 9 buttons seem to set the clock back to the last time entered with the C button. I'm not sure what this is for. I am probably missing something obvious. Okay, that's it. Enjoy your Nixie clock.